day. Wow, what a game by Ole Miss. Getting over the hump, beating Georgia at home. I was on the Ole Miss message board, OM Spirit, before the game, and I'll be honest, there wasn't a lot of optimism coming into this one that they could slow down Georgia in the trenches. They did just that. Wow, we're going to talk all about it. All right, let's bring in the great Steve Wiltfong. Steve, Lane Kiffin getting a little emotional talking about Jackson Dart's performance after that one. If you're a recruit, what are you watching in this game? I mean, this had to be an amazing atmosphere.
Well, you're talking about an Ole Miss team that won 11 games for the first time in program history, played in the Peach Bowl, poured a lot into this season to make a college football playoff run. These are the wins you have to be playing in those big ball games. At the end of the year, 28-10. I never felt like it was even that close, Josh. Ole Miss in complete control, nearly 400 yards of total offense, held Georgia to just 59 rushing yards, 245 total yards. Carson Beck did not throw a touchdown, just threw a pick. The crowd was in a frenzy. They rushed the field not once, but twice. They get a huge win. Ole Miss has the nation's number 18 recruiting class right now per the On3 industry. They hosted several top targets today. These are the kind of games that get you ahead in recruitments in 2026 and 2027. Going to be very memorable moments in their recruiting process. Just a huge day for Lane Kiffin and company. And I know we're about to break it all down.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about the 26 and 27 comments. I mean, games like these get etched into your memory. Some of these recruits will go on to take several more visits, but when they come back to Ole Miss, they will remember the feeling of the goalpost getting torn down, the field being rushed twice by the students. They will remember tonight, and that's for sure. Now, there's also some 2025 targets on campus, and that's what we're going to get into. We got AK Deer on here. He was expected in. He did not make it. At least we have not confirmed. Oh, no, you did confirm that he did not make it, but He was expected in. But let's focus on the guys that were there. Deuce Knight, committed to Auburn, flipped from Notre Dame. He shows up on campus at Ole Miss. And Steve, you always told me to watch out for Ole Miss with Deuce Knight. And that's when he was committed to Notre Dame, but he committed to Auburn. He flipped that commitment. I was surprised to see him back at Ole Miss this weekend. What do you think of Deuce Knight showing up in Oxford?
Well, got a text at 1:45 Central from a source on campus that said Deuce Knight is in Oxford. They didn't want anything leaking out until he arrived on campus, but that tells me that this thing has been brewing for a while right now. And look, similar to Michigan making a late push at Bryce Underwood, Ole Miss has never gone away on Deuce Knight, whether it was his commitment to Notre Dame, now his commitment to Auburn. Deuce Knight visited Auburn for every home game in September. He visits Ole Miss for this ball game and gets a different result than most of the times he was on the plains. Just an outstanding atmosphere. Now, he was up front with Auburn, told Auburn he was going to be on campus. I still think Ole Miss is moving uphill right now in the Deuce Knight sweepstakes, but we know that they're going to keep pushing. I think this is the only quarterback that they're targeting in 2025 right now. If they don't land him, they'll go portal. I think they like their quarterback room, the young guys that they have in there, Austin Simmons and company. But certainly Deuce Knight is a guy that they continue to have dialogue with, got him on campus, and we'll see how the infrastructure and resources fare in the sweepstakes for Deuce Knight leading up to the early signing period.
So there you go. Producer
Look at Trey, man,
knocked out the AK Deer edit, so you can see he did not make it in. Although that would have been exciting had he made it in. Let's talk a little bit more about Deuce Knight. One of the reasons why he flipped to Auburn was because there's playing time there. I mean, like we've said all season long, Deuce Knight has seen loss after loss after loss at Auburn. But one of the things that could keep him involved with the program is the fact that they don't really have a quarterback. So did this Ole Miss game seal the deal for Deuce Knight to Auburn? Because Austin Simmons came in, he went 5 for 6 against Georgia off the bench, looked amazing, led a touchdown drive when they really needed it. And he has all the tools. Physically, he's there. He's a redshirt freshman. Do you think Deuce Knight could actually look at this and be like, oh, well, Auburn has a little bit more of an appetizing way onto the field than Ole Miss does?
Well, he could look at it and say, I go to a place like Ole Miss and bet on myself to thrive in this offense if I ultimately earn the starting quarterback responsibilities and in-state recruit, what that would mean for him and his brand to stay in state and play for the Rebels. I think one of the reasons why he's excited about Auburn is that chance to come in there and compete on day one and maybe win the starting job as a true freshman. Auburn's recruited they're in the process of recruiting a second straight top 10 class. I think that also excites him. He sees a lot of playmakers, the way Auburn's recruited the receiver position, an opportunity to be successful around some explosive players. But certainly anytime Lane Kiffin has coached an offense, that ball's picking up first downs, big plays, and against a terrific Georgia defense today, I think they showed that they can go toe-to-toe with anybody and got a huge win. And Deuce Knight got a taste of what it would be like to play his college football in state. Certainly, he'd have to there might be a little more competition perhaps at Ole Miss than Auburn to play early. But month ago in this recruitment, I think they're still battling uphill for Deuce Knight, but him coming on campus is not nothing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's going to be a storyline that we're going to have to figure out. I mean, just the fact that he was on campus, we know that it's not nothing. It's not nothing. It's something. We just got to figure out what exactly it means. And I'm sure you and Chad and everybody at On3 will be talking to Deuce Knight in the coming days. Now, let's talk about Caleb Cunningham, the 5-star wide receiver committed to Alabama, committed to the Tide in midsummer. And Steve, you always told me, and there's a picture of Deuce Knight and Caleb Cunningham from Zach Berry at the game. Steve, you always told me to watch out for Caleb Cunningham and Ole Miss, because no matter who he committed to in the midsummer, you told me Ole Miss would be there in the end. What do you think of this visit and the fact that he was there at the last home game as well?
Well, when he visited for Ole Miss's opener, we said that he would be back for the Oklahoma game and the Georgia game. So all these visits were planned. These weren't just pop-up, spur-of-the-moment trips back to Oxford. He still has his official visit in play for Ole Miss if he wants to use it. But teaming up with Chad Simmons, our colleague on the Caleb Cunningham beat, talking to Caleb myself after his last visit to Ole Miss for the Oklahoma game, I think it's trending towards Ole Miss. I think he's ultimately going to be in the Rebels class. It's up to Alabama to change the momentum. I know he's committed to the Crimson Tide, but I just really like the way that this is shaping up right now for the Ole Miss Rebels as we get closer to the early signing period.
Yeah. And, one game, we don't ever, when we talk recruiting visits, we don't ever think that like one visit could do it. But this was a big visit. This was a big visit for Caleb Cunningham.
Look, an opportunity for him to play early, in his opinion. He talked about what his brand was like in the state. When he was there for the Oklahoma game, kids were coming up to him. He was signing autographs. He was taking pictures. He talked about Coach Kiffin and the way he gets his playmakers the ball. I think it's and then look, man, you follow the visits, the old rule, right? And I know he's been to Alabama. We'll see if he gets to the Iron Bowl or the Mercer game. I think they play Mercer next for their next home game. I just think that this is one that's going to go Ole Miss's way right now, unless something changes over the next few weeks. It gives me confidence that he's ultimately going to stick with Alabama.
All right. Who else? We were going to get Zach Berry in here with OM Spirit, but Steve, the connection in Oxford.
We should try anyway. I just want to see the background.
We couldn't get the video to work. That was the problem. So we'll keep trying here. We'll see if we can get Zach Berry on. But JUCO defensive lineman Xavier Hardy also showed up for this one. Xavier Hardy, one of the top JUCO players in the country, plays that premier position on the defensive line. But the problem is he's committed to Mississippi State. What are you hearing on Xavier Hardy?
Well, there's a lot of SEC programs trying to change that narrative, and Ole Miss is one of them. So we'll see ultimately where the chips fall. But he is one of the most coveted prospects out there, regardless of class, regardless of are you high school or are you JUCO or are you in the portal right now. That's a big time guy to have on campus. So is edge rusher Jared Smith. Josh, that was a name that he arrived on campus today. Also committed to Auburn, the number 4 edge rusher in the land per the On3 industry. He's been to just about every Auburn home game. South Carolina is a program that has already had him on campus once this year for the LSU game. He's going to be back in Columbia for the Mizzou game. But there was a time where I'll just say, look, I thought early on in his recruitment, South Carolina led. Auburn was able to change that momentum at the end of the summer and ultimately get them in the fold. We have South Carolina battling back, but there was a moment in that spring summer time where Ole Miss was right there as one of the front runners for Jared Smith as well. A lot of that has to do with his relationship with potential position coach Randall Joyner, but him popping up at Ole Miss isn't as random as people would think, because I would always have put Ole Miss in the top 3 with Auburn and South Carolina. We'll see what he thought of this experience coming out. Not much cell phone service when fans are rushing the field multiple times. So have not connected with Jared Smith just yet about his visit, but Ole Miss, as we talk about flip programs, I would say they're more than a dark horse, because he had genuine interest in them most of his process.
Yeah. So Lane Kiffin gets the win over Georgia. Let's kind of tie a bow on this Ole Miss win. It also kind of coincides with flip season, Steve. Is Lane Kiffin going to take this momentum and do what he does? I mean, I know Ole Miss high school recruiting has been in worse spots hitting flip season. They're actually recruiting, like you said, really well right now at the high school level. They're not necessarily depending on a bunch of flips to make the class, but I'm looking at a couple on the board, and it seems like Lane Kiffin could do just that down the stretch. And I don't think people were counting on Ole Miss to be this force in recruiting down the stretch based on how their season began.
Well, Ole Miss had a top 5 transfer portal class last year for On3. I think that's a place where they'll want to make a lot of hay again following this season, particularly on defense. A lot of senior transfers making an impact for Ole Miss across the board. So you see a guy like Suntarine Perkins make the big play on defense to seal the game. He's a sophomore that they can build around. But there is a lot of transfers on this defense, and for them to play at this caliber again next year, although I thought they recruited one of the best defensive line classes in the country, there is an infusion of young talent coming into this program. The transfer portal, the way they're closing this season, the way those guys are playing, I think we'll see them recruit another top 5 transfer portal class.
Yeah, and we're gonna have Zach Berry of OM Spirit on tomorrow. OM Spirit's the Ole Miss website on the On3 network, and it is buzzing right now. You guys head over to the message board. Fans are celebrating. Zach Berry also reporting that Ole Miss, Steve, has been in contact with Texas wide receiver transfer Jonte Cook. So, like you said, they are already getting on that transfer portal class. So we'll see what happens there. We'll talk to Zach Berry tomorrow on Sunday's Inside Scoop. But Ole Miss fans, wow, historic win tonight for the Rebels. Talk to Steve and I. Comment section below. How do you feel about having Deuce Knight on campus to witness this one? Caleb Cunningham was on campus. Jared Smith, Cameron Sparks, Shakai Mills Knight. You got to love Ole Miss recruiting right now. It's going to be red hot heading into these last couple weeks before signing day. Talk to us. Comment section below. Let us know who you think Ole Miss is going to sign. Let us know.